All right, Reese. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna lay here, right? I'm gonna lay here, and I'm gonna be going like this. And what I want you to do is edit me like I'm flying, so like maybe put like a cape on me or something, and so I just kind of like I'm flying in to save the day, and like save the saves. You get what I mean. Or maybe I could, here, I got you. I'll like fly in. Alright. I think that's good. Saving saves, superhero, something.
You know the deal. You submit your Football Manager saves through the subscriber section of the Discord. I save them. Let's sit down with the first one, which comes from Kiramaja, who's managing Bertan Albayan. Nailed it. I have 3 problems. 1, I have a lot of players that I want to get rid of, but I cannot sell them for a reasonable price, the estimated value, which I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, that is bull. Like, bull. 2, I don't know if my scouting assignments are good enough. I have problems finding good players. My youth intake is trash. And 3, I won the Premier League on pure luck. Thomas Jefferson once said that the harder I work, the luckier I get. I'm pretty sure that's according to the internet. Who knows if he actually said it? He lived 5,000 years ago. And I'm afraid that my team will be smashed in the UCL. Thanks in advance. If you qualify for the UCL out of England, you should probably make the knockout stage, no problem. That's just off the top. But let's take a look at the save. Oh, would you look at this? Is this my Oriental Dragon save that I stream on Twitch? That if you click the Twitch link down in the description below, you can watch me play and lead a team all the way from semi-pro to Champions League. Look, we're in European knockout stages in the Europa Conference Group Stage World Cup Confed Cup League conference thing. We're in the quarterfinals. I'll see you there. Okay, we're in. Burton Albion, you won the Premier League after finishing 7th and 11th. So you're not quite sure if your team is like good enough to have won the Premier League. It's 2026. Which makes this a pretty impressive job to get yourself to this point. But you said you are worried about the fact that you cannot sell a lot of your players, or you can't sell a lot of players for their value. There's a reason for this. You're in the Premier League, okay? And being in the Premier League, you have the most inflated player values and the most inflated player wages in the world. That is not a dispute. That is a fact. In Football Manager, your wages are going to be higher for the average ability of a player than anywhere in the world, and your value is going to be higher because the Premier League has an incredibly high reputation, and it has an incredibly large number of clubs that are of very high reputation and have a lot of money, and so the value of these players is very high. Where my Bate Borisov save last year, and if you had, I mentioned Bate in the opening 10 minutes of the video, then you win $5 in the bingo card. But the Bate save last year, I would have players at $2-3 million in valuation that I could sell for 70 to 80 million to some of the biggest clubs in the world. The valuation was so low because my league sucked, right? And there was no reputation. The only reputation was of my club and of the players that were playing for my club, which their reputation wasn't as high because they were playing in the Belarusian highest league. Huzzah! Vyshelchelia! Ostrovia! This is my job. You do have Leonidas Sturgiou, which means you're a man after my own heart, but you only have 2 people listed for transfer who you also have actively loaned out and who suck. So I don't know necessarily who you're trying to sell, but in a broader sense, if you are attempting to sell players and you're not getting their value, it's because there are not a lot of clubs in the world that are willing to match value when selling a player. Something you need to consider, though, is that when you are trying to sell a player, my God, he has an Irish Messi. Just clicking through the players, you do not have a great team, but you have a couple of great players, which I love. You got Bulgarian Evgeny Asperuhov, who's, oh my God. Oh my God. This guy was on Ludogorets until last year. Wow. But like, this is an example. He is in brilliant form, 10 goals, 12 assists, and 31 appearances in the Premier League for you, help lead you to the title. He's in great form, and you'd probably be able to get over his value because of that fantastic form and all of that playing time. The issue with moving your deadwood in your older types of players is that they're not going to have this kind of playing time. They're not going to have this type of rating, and if they do, they're usually not the type of player that you want to move. So either they're established players that put out some great ratings over a couple of years, or they're players that haven't played for a year or two, in which case it's hard to establish their value or reach their value. You also have the situation where they're running up towards the end of their contract, and if you put somebody in the transfer list, they know that you're not going to want to renew that contract, and so a lot of the bargaining power when you're moving your deadwood players is going to be with the other team. As for anything above that, check out this video about how to sell players that you can't sell, because that really gets into super depth on that. We'll take a quick look at your scouting assignments now as another thing that you feel like is just going to body you. Okay, we have Central Europe, Scandinavia. You said do you feel like you're not finding a lot of good players? We got 2 scouts in Ireland. Like the UK and Ireland, we're looking for first team players. Well, that's a very difficult thing to be looking for. Right, and now we're looking for hot prospect. Good is at most 24, so a classic little hot prospect scouting trip. What are you doing here? Right, so you have half of your scouts that are just completely unassigned, and in which case I'm going to need to break out my scouting violation whistle. Scouting violation. You do not need this many people that are not on assignment. You can keep a couple of people not on assignment to help you kind of get through the pile of players that you have being scouted, but that doesn't really help that much. And honestly, I'm beginning to think that it doesn't matter at all if you leave 2 or 3 of these guys to help you get through kind of your priorities list, like the number of people that you're looking to scout actively at the moment. You should put more of these people out on assignment. You have no one in Eastern Europe. You've got multiple people blanketing Scandinavia and the UK and Ireland, which just isn't necessarily the best. UK and Ireland I kind of understand, but you've got 1 person each in South America. You honestly could afford to put a 2nd person each in South America and get some great opinions on those players. You have that many. North America is worth a scout. North Africa is worth a scout. And I know you already have a scout in Eastern Europe, but this guy has 10 judging player ability. Are you actively trying to hurt yourself? You are the Premier League champions. Dump this clown, sorry Simon, wherever you are, and get a real scout, and then send them to Eastern Europe. Send somebody to South Europe. Please. Send somebody to Central America. There's a couple of good players there. And then double up everywhere. Go to specific nations if you want to. Spain, Portugal, looking for hot prospects. You have an amazing scouting group, except for this guy and a couple of other guys that are just really not that good at scouting. Replace those, send them somewhere. Marcelo Moreno is getting paid $207,000 a year to be bad. He's got cool, interesting knowledge. Send him to random South American countries for hot prospect scouting until finished. Problem solved. As for the level of your team relative to being able to compete in Europe, you'll be fine. You just have a couple of great players and the rest of your team is like mid-table Premier League level at a lot of positions. You just need to, over time, either develop talent in those positions or use your new scouting layout to find better players to plug in. But you're at a level where you're not going to be finding a ton of players that are good enough to help your team. So when you do, act fast. Spend the money wisely but aggressively. Next, we have our boy Cornflakes 2012 of the Albion Rovers. Stuck in the SPFL Championship, that is Scotland for you lay people. Owner refuses to become professional or help the club in any way in a league with 80% of teams being pro clubs. Wage is to the point where teams in my league have players whose salaries more than 20% of my budget, which honestly isn't actually that much. Scrapping teams together teams that can compete and finish in a playoff spot isn't that hard. Can't seem to break through. Now, Scotland has like 4 teams in every league, so it honestly shouldn't be that hard to just cheese your way into the top flight with a couple of loans or something, but being semi-pro is going to hurt you in that instance, and you are up around the playoff again. What you need to understand is that you're not going to go professional. I'm surprised the Scottish Championship isn't a fully professional league. That does surprise me, but you are not going to become a fully professional team until it is obvious for you to need to do so, right? So I didn't become a fully professional team in Portugal with Oriental Dragon until we got promoted to the 3rd division, which is fully professional, and then they had to. You will only have a board go professional if it is obvious. You get a pretty significant windfall. You sell a player for $1 million or $500,000 or something. A significant amount of money comes in from somewhere that makes it painfully obvious for it to happen. I've made the transition multiple times myself. That is the only time that it happens. It does not happen when you go, please, board. Please. It doesn't happen that way. It never happens that way. It has to happen when you're like, well, finally, we got to be professional, right? And then the club becomes professional. And in this case, for you, that would be getting promoted. Getting promoted is what would make you a professional team, because you were in the Scottish Championship with just 10 other teams. And 40% of the entire league is in promotion contention right down to the end of the season. So you need to get up to the Scottish Premiership and not worry about the fact that you are semi-pro at the moment, because that will make you a professional club and you will obviously be able to work very aggressively from there. So how bad is it? I mean, you're making it out to be bad. It's bad. Salary per year. Okay, we're second to last. Actually significantly ahead of Partick Thistle, which I called Patrick Thistle for about 5 years. So did you. Don't lie. The R is before the T. Zoom in on that. It's life-changing stuff. Well, the first thing I've noticed is you have a senior affiliation with Celtic, which, how are you not promoted yet? This is genius, and if you sought this out, right, this is a brilliant thing to do. You started in 2021, hopefully. But all you got to do is look at players. You go to all players and transfer and look for people that are listed for loan, and any of these guys can join your team for free. And you're only allowed 4 loan players, so you got to make sure that you get this right. You've loaned in 4 players, and you're going to get promoted based off loans, right? You should have your scouts working for end of contract players, doing a bunch of crazy stuff like that, but you are going to get promoted based off your loans, which means you have to hit. You missed on 2 out of 4 this year, and you are still 4th in the league. That is simultaneously a good sign and a bad sign. If you take your time on the loans, you spend your time scouting the entire Celtic team. I mean, scouting them, so that you know all the people that are available for loan, and you can get the best ones for free and use all of that money. Look, I know you landed a great loan player named Stuart Ross, but you are paying $37,000 a year out of a wage budget that is actually much larger than I thought it was. That's not what she said. It's tough out there. So honest to goodness, that's a solid deal, but the genius in me wants you to actually pay nothing for your loans, because you got the best team in Scotland that you can loan players from for free. Make sure you've got Celtic completely scouted. Honest to goodness, you should probably have the entire top flight of Scotland scouted so that you can grab these players and hit on all 4 of your loans, because that will be the difference between you getting promoted and not. Will you be able to win the league? You're in a bit of a tough spot because you have not carried the momentum from previous promotions to this point. Right, so you actually are probably going to have to gut your way through a playoff, but in terms of becoming professional, it's just getting into the top flight. So we're scouting for end of contract players, which right now you've got this weird assemblage of scouting looking for specific. How are you going to sign them? Cornflakes? How are you going to sign them? You don't have any money. Your budget was $11,000 coming into this year. How are you going to sign them? You're not. End of contract only. Like some of them you have set to end of contract, and this you're like, is at most estimated cost $30,000? You're looking for 2 different goalkeepers? One of your loan players is a goalkeeper? Get scouts onto all the teams in the top flight, so that when you get to the summer and you're signing your next set of loan players, you're going to be able to grab the 4 best loan players you possibly can, and that might just be able to play your way all the way up. Then you need end of contract scouting in every place that you can scout, so you can bring those players in too. Next, my team won the Champions League last year, and this season we are close to doing it again, but my team is hugely underperforming in all competitions. With my strikers underperforming no matter what formation I've used, what can I do to turn the rest of the season around and get my strikers firing and try to win the Champions League now that the season is over and I have not qualified for Europe? What? He's in 8th. You won the Champions League last year, and you're in 8th. How? You finished 7th the year before. You got Champions League and you won it, which is impressive. You've missed Europe and you're in the Champions League final. You won the Champions League last year. Okay. Is it the FA Cup? Is that what gives you the Champions League? No, there's no Champions League spot on the line in the FA. Sorry about your loss in the FA Cup final. Didn't mean to bring that up for you. And the likely case is that no matter what you're going to do when you get to this point in the season, in the Champions League final, you're very fortunate to get to that point. And now you're going up against the Liverpool team that was almost 30 points better than you throughout the course of the season. And just thumbing through your squad, like, you have some players that have some real skill, like Adarabio is a really good player to have. Urdiaga, this guy is a stud. You have Dio Opamecano, who is an absolute stud. You have Juan Miranda, who is a very good player. Look, we were just looking at a Burton Albion team that is legitimately worse than this team that won the league. So you're doing something wrong in the league, I believe, because your team is nutty and should definitely be in contention around the top of the Premier League. Just in case you didn't know that. The best Austrian players of all time around this team. You're starting a 17-year-old at striker, and I love it. You got this guy through your youth intake? Shut the front door. Yeah, you thought I was gonna... You did, didn't you? And then you have Dele Alli. Good for you. Okay, I've thumbed through your team. Your team is absolutely disgusting. You've done a good job of team building. This is exactly what a rising star type of team should look like. Looks like you've landed a lot of signings. A signing like Sander Berg, though, is a little bit confusing. It's not a guy that helps elevate your team into the future, but maybe you needed to plug a hole at that particular moment, whatever floats your boat. You also have like Fabinho for a little leadership off the bench. I respect what you're doing here. Maybe a little bit of waste of money. Your issue is not whether you're going to succeed in the Champions League. Your issue is, why did you fail in the league so hard? And the issue is clearly on the defensive side of the ball. Your offense is good enough to be around the top part of the league, to be around Champions League spots, where defensively you're conceding a lot. You're unlucky based off the goal distribution to be behind Leeds in this situation, but still you conceded far too many goals compared to all the teams that are where you want to be. So if this is the main tactic you're using, clearly this space that you're giving to the midfield and the level of attacking and the lack of involvement, I think a very key point here is the lack of involvement that Raumdeuters take in defense. So using two of them, you're very exposed. That might be something that's contributing, because you are leaving these 6 people on an island to play defense, and there is very little opportunity for the rest of these guys to get back. It could work in big matches because the other teams are also a little scared to throw people forward, so you can catch them quickly and they're not going to pressure you as much. But in the run of the course of the league, that's your issue. And double Raumdeuter, as much as I love the Gaul, you'd probably need something like this at the very least to make that work. And you'd need a very good defense. And you have a very good defense. Obviously, it's not working, though, especially with tight marking and those sorts of things. You have 4 people that are just stapled forward the way you kind of have. You see this big red spot. There's nobody getting back into these areas at all. And if they get their fullbacks up, they could, honest to goodness, outnumber you defensively. That's what I would try and do. Next, MJ Bruce, a mod on the Twitch channel. Shout out, my dude. Just finished 14th in league, all in the 2nd season running. So you finished there twice in a row. Had a striker improvement and would have done better if not for late season FMings. Got very little transfer budget, but want to progress. Not sure whether it's a tactical thing, stick to the 4-3-3 or move to a narrow diamond I've got set up as a 3rd tactic, okay? Or whether I need more loans from better clubs to help me improve, and if so, what areas do I need to improve? Got it. First area I'm going to go to is just having a look through on the rest of your team. Based off what I can see, your midfield level attributes across the distribution of your team are pretty bad. Your midfielders are very bad compared to the rest of the league that you're coming up against. And like, obviously clicking through this, you're not a team that has the talent level to kind of push ahead. I know that the finances are very limited, and by that I mean your original budget was $36. I'm hoping that's just because you've done some tweaking, because your payroll budget is like $21 million a year. You need to balance that out in some way. If your payroll budget is $17 million a year and your transfer budget is $3 to $4 million, you can start to sign a couple of young, talented players to build your team going forward. You won't sign the best young, talented players, but as I've done with Oriental Dragon, you sign some of them. And because of that, I don't think your tactics are a problem, except I don't think this is the answer. Playing narrow requires a very specific set of skills, type of team, type of midfielders. You need these guys to be able to work very hard to get out into spaces. You need players that are able to work well in tight spaces. When you're playing narrow, you need fullbacks, especially if you're going to be used offensively at all, that are very good. And you obviously don't have that because of the way your team is set up. So I don't think there's anything wrong with a 4-3-3. This is not great in Football Manager at the moment. What I would potentially recommend is maybe dropping back to one of these, or doing a stagger where you have one wing up and the other one back. because this can, leaving too much space in the wing can be a real serious problem in these positions. Maybe try having this person as an advanced playmaker just to get a little more pressure right on the edge, the 18, and probably come up with a secondary tactic that plays with 2 strikers, a classic 4-4-2 perhaps, so that you can get some late pressure against the back line. But tactics are not, and in my opinion, are never usually the main problem, unlike the last thing that we were just looking at where the person got out of the way to make it their main problem. So you take a look at this guy, and the players that I have at Oriental Dragon are better than this guy, and you're playing in a much more difficult league against much better teams. That's just always going to be an issue. Now, it's a good pickup. He's got some potential. He's going to try and push on and help you reach it, but these guys are not. You need an all-around raise of level on your entire team if you want to get into the top half. Fascinating 6'7" player, though. I mean, goodness, isn't he playing the wrong sport? What do I know? He's a heck of a lot better than me. Do we know that? I mean, bring it, bro. Bring it. Buy some Zealand merch, by the way. It's very comfortable. I just can't wear it in public because it has my name on it, and that's just awkward and makes my classes uncomfortable. It's loans from better clubs, and it's a better balancing of your budget. You need to get some money into your transfer budget. Reduce the payroll a little bit because you do have a pretty fat first-team squad. Reduce the payroll, get some more money into your transfer budget. Set up the scouting. You know how to do that. You're around the Twitch enough. And you set up your scouting well, players will come. You'll sign them for 400,000 a pop, and then all of a sudden you'll be building a talented young team that can start to push forward. Bruce, I look forward to hearing about it. And saves have been saved. Yeah. Looking forward to the next saving saves. Bye.